There's only one news story worth bothering with today, folks. It's breaking news on the BBC. Live, Supreme Court rules the legal definition of a woman is based on biological sex. Yeah. So let's take stock of where we are, right? It's took a decade of court appearances, tens of millions of pounds, dozens of legal fights, tens of thousands of activists, Graham Linehan and everybody else waiting in on it, J.K. Rowling. It's been a raging debate for a decade, a raging, bad-tempered, nasty debate that saw tens of thousands of people cancelled and fired and sacked, and women losing thousands of medals and millions of dollars and pounds of prize money. It's been a massive issue. It would take me hours to reel off some of the major incidents that have occurred, thanks to this maelstrom. And now, finally, because a bunch of unelected knobheads on a court that didn't exist 30 years ago, now, finally, after all that effort and all that time and all that money and all that smearing and all that lying, finally now, apparently, you're legally allowed to say that a big, hairy-ass geezer with four arms like Popeye and a wiry back isn't a bird. This is where we're at. People are celebrating now like it's a victory for common sense when something as obvious as a boot in the bollocks has took 10 years to settle. How is that a win? Well, I'll comb through the ashes of this story and see if I can find something worth actually celebrating, shall I? Right then, it's all social media is talking about today. The UK Supreme Court has ruled that the definition of a woman is based on sex, something that only in the minds of a psychopath was ever up for debate in the first place. We might as well start having decade-long legal battles about whether a golden retriever's a canine or whether existing entirely on Pop-Tarts and mayonnaise is good for your health. These things are so self-evident. I'm staggered that anybody's sitting there going, oh, this is a win, nice one. It should never have even been a conversation. But I'm grumpy, I'm ranting, so let's have a read, shall we? The UK Supreme Court has ruled that legal definition of a woman is based on biological sex. Well. I never saw this one staggering drunkenly over the hill 40 miles away. Judges say the concept of sex is binary, while cautioning that the landmark ruling should not be seen as a victory of one side over another. Transgender people still have full legal protection from discrimination, the court adds. Wow, needed an 88-page judgment. You mean the same exact rights they had in 1985? You mean that? The Scottish government, obviously the Scottish government had argued that transgender people with a gender recognition certificate are entitled to sex-based protections. Obviously the Scottish government did. I've told you, and it sounds like I've been ripping on the jocks for the last week, but lads, your country is a joke. I mean, the UK is a joke, England's a joke, Wales is a joke, but the SNP, you lads have been voting for Marxists for over a decade. Of course, the Scottish government thinks it's a good idea to give sex-based protections to big skinheads with tattoos on the neck. And I'm not making that one up. If any of you missed it, the tattooed meat axe, is the serial diddler, serial sex offender that the Scottish government, nay, the Prime Minister herself, went to bat for, to demand that the big burly skinhead definitely be allowed to serve his time in a female prison. So, we're all embarrassed. Everyone who lives in the UK should be embarrassed by their respective governments, but there's none worse than the SNP. That was an international embarrassment. A serial sex criminal, but he rocks up to court one day, a meat axe with tattoos on his napper, dressed as a bad stereotype of what a 1980s builder would think a sexy woman looks like. Okay, I thought we weren't pigeonholing women these days, but dressed as a bad stereotype with pink lippy and a pink handbag and a pink bomber jacket, and the Scottish Prime Minister went, definitely a woman. Definitely a woman, even though he just had one in a headlock and was bouncing on her back doors without her consent. Definitely a woman. It's a national embarrassment. This isn't a day for celebration. This is a day when the entire nation should be hanging their collective heads in shame. The UK is an international joke. That any of this even ended up in a courtroom. Unbelievable. Anyway, I'm dragging the mood down. This is supposed to be a day for celebration. Let's get back to the story, shall we? 4 Women Scotland says it's grateful for the decision after a long road of legal battles, while charity Scottish Trans urges people not to panic. The Scottish Government says it acted in good faith and will work with Westminster to understand the full implications of the ruling. Get to grips with the developments so far. How do you define a woman? We know how to do it. We don't need to read this, do we? You've all seen the memes. You've all seen the memes of the doctor holding out the newborn baby to the man and wife, and the proud father goes, "Is it a boy or a girl?" And the doctor says, "I've absolutely no idea, but it's got a cock." Charity Scottish Trans says it is really shocked by the outcome of the Supreme Court case. Yeah, as shocked as me when O.J. Simpson got off. I tell you who they're not as shocked as. A Glaswegian plumber who takes a bird back to his flat after meeting her in a nightclub, starts necking on with her on his settee, and then sticks his hands down her drawers and finds out she's got a throbbing, veiny 9-inch clitoris. And Duncan Bannatyne's weighed in saying, "I hope all gym owners will finally join me in agreeing that single-sex spaces for women means biological women." What, you don't think burly labourers should be able to spend all day carrying bricks up ladders with a hod and then just go into the women's changing rooms at a local gym, sit in the naked sauna with 10 birds, while massaging his thighs and grunting, and making generic sexual deviant noises like this? And thanks to Hugh Edwards for providing the audio sample there. And independent MP Rosie Duffield, who I'm sure you all remember, had to resign because she said at-risk women in crisis centres shouldn't have to endure sharing a bunk with a stocky, squat scaffolder from Stockton-on-Tees with calloused hands and very smelly feet. So she got binned for that. Nice one. Right, I'm going to stop because there's just story after story after story of what everybody knows and what everybody has known for decades. To sum up, I'll simply say this. The position of people like me and Linehan and J.K. Rowling, who, amazingly, everyone's saying she's based. No, she's based on one issue because she was married to an abusive ex-husband or an ex-boyfriend who used to fill her in. She's based on one issue. But cognitive dissonance is strong with these cringing, hand-wringing maniacs. She's going to go right back to being on the wrong side of every issue once she's over this blind spot. The fact of the matter is, nobody ever advocated for mistreatment of anyone, ever. I was raised in the 80s and the 90s. I was pro-LGBT well before it was fashionable, with all these woke Gen Zers, all these self-trimming politicians who'll say anything as long as it's the fashionable statement of the day. Nobody said they should mistreat them. All everybody has been saying for ages is that 1, children shouldn't be able to get in on the action, and 2, women have a right to female-only spaces. Guess what? Just like men do, or should do. I mean, we don't anymore, because you don't live in a free country. But that's how it should work. Nobody said it was okay to assault people. J.K. Rowling's been positively uniform with her views all the way through. She's put out massive rambling tweets saying, of course trans people should be treated well. Of course they should be free to live their lives however they want. Not one single person has ever said, oh yeah, you should definitely be allowed to go out and chin them. Nobody. But because the world's gone mad, they take up all of our time discussing this gibberish that everybody knows the answer to, when we should be concentrating on important things. Think about it. Think of the money and the time and the effort that's gone in to a decade of discussing gibberish. The patently obvious. If all of them man hours and all of that money had gone into like a space program or curing cancer, who knows where we'd be? We might all be floating around the UK in flying cars instead of walking through bin liner mountains and wrestling rats the size of mountain lions in Birmingham. This is why we're an embarrassment as a nation. This is why Europe and the entire Western world is starting to collapse, because all of our time and energy goes into debating nonsense that everybody knows the answer to anyway. And nobody ever said anything controversial, ever. But here we are. Bob the Builder shouldn't be in the female powerlifting contest. No shit. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable people think this is a win. It's not a win. It shouldn't take this much effort to get to a common sense point of view, should it? But we are where we are. That's my opinion. I've been a bit miserable considering it's supposed to be a good day. I will end on one serious note though. Rest in peace, Magdalen Burns. She was quite a vocal, militant feminist, and she got retweeted quite a lot by J.K. Rowling back in the day. But she died of a brain tumour in 2019. She'd love to see it, wouldn't she? So don't worry, Magdalen. We got there in the end. I hope you can take some solace from the fact that common sense did prevail, and fear not, another chippy YouTuber that likes common sense is happy to take up the mantle in your name, although I'll be slightly less interested in kicking about with big gangs of lesbians, but I will still continue to advocate aggressively for common sense in your absence. All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. That's me for the day. I'll see you all tomorrow. Toodle pip. Cheers.